How to unlock your real personality. Personality, that magnetic and mysterious something that is easy to recognize but difficult to define, is not so much acquired from without as released from within. What we call personality is the outward evidence of that unique and individual creative self, that spark of divinity within us, or what might be called the free and full expression of your real self. This real self within every person is attractive. It is magnetic. It does have a powerful impact and influence on other people. We have the feeling that we are in touch with something real and basic, and it does something to us. On the other hand, a phony is universally disliked and detested. Why does everyone love babies? Certainly not for what babies can do or what they know or have, but simply because of what they are. Infants have personality plus. There is no superficiality, no phoniness, no hypocrisy. In their own language, which consists mostly of either crying or cooing, they express their real feelings. They say what they mean. Babies are emotionally honest. They exemplify to the nth degree the psychological dictum, be yourself. They have no qualms about expressing themselves. They are not in the least inhibited. Babies are proof that all inhibition is learned, taught to the self-image, not born within the self-image. Everyone has a dynamic personality locked up within him. Every human being has the mysterious something we call personality. When we say that people have a good personality, what we really mean is that they have freed and released the creative potential within them and are able to express their real self. Poor personality and inhibited personality are one and the same. Individuals with a poor personality do not express the creative self within. They have restrained it, handcuffed it, locked it up, and thrown away the key. The word inhibit literally means to stop, prevent, prohibit, restrain. The inhibited personality has imposed a restraint on the expression of the real self. For one reason or another, the person is afraid to express himself, afraid to be himself, and has locked up his real self within an inner prison. The symptoms of inhibition are many and varied. Shyness, timidity, self-consciousness, hostility, feelings of excessive guilt, insomnia, nervousness, irritability, inability to get along with others. Frustration is characteristic of practically every area and activity of the inhibited personality. The real and basic frustration is the failure to be himself, and the failure to adequately express himself. But this basic frustration is likely to color and overflow into all that he does. Excessive negative feedback equals inhibition. Negative feedback says, in effect, you are wrong, you're off course. You need to take corrective action to get back on the beam. The purpose of negative feedback, however, is to modify response and change the course of forward action, not to stop it altogether. We must have negative feedback in order to operate purposely, in order to steer our way or be guided to a goal. Negative feedback always says, in effect, stop what you're doing or the way you're doing it and do something else. Its purpose is to modify response or change the degree of forward action, not to stop all action. Negative feedback does not say, stop, period. It says, what you are doing is wrong. But it does not say, it is wrong to do anything. Yet where negative feedback is excessive, or where our own mechanism is too sensitive to negative feedback, the result is not modification of response, but total inhibition of response. Inhibition and excessive negative feedback are one and the same. When we overreact to negative feedback or criticism, we are likely to conclude that not only is our present course slightly off beam or wrong, but that it is wrong for us even to want to go forward. Excessive carefulness or being too anxious not to make an error is a form of excessive negative feedback. As in the case of the stutterer, who attempts to anticipate possible errors and be overly careful not to make them, the result is inhibition and deterioration of performance. Excessive carefulness and anxiety are close kin. Both have to do with too much concern for possible failure, doing the wrong thing, and making too much of a conscious effort to do right. Self-consciousness is really others' consciousness. The cause and effect relationship between excessive negative feedback and what we call self-consciousness can be readily seen. In any sort of social relationship, we constantly receive negative feedback data from other people. A smile, a frown, 100 different subtle clues of approval or disapproval, interest or lack of interest, continually advise us of how we're doing, whether we're getting across, whether we're hitting or missing the mark, so to speak. In any sort of social situation, there is a constant interaction going on between speaker and listener, actor and observer. And without this constant communication back and forth, human relations and social activities would be virtually impossible. And if not impossible, it would certainly be dull, boring, non-inspiring, and dead, without sparks. Good actors, actresses, and public speakers can sense this communication from the audience, and it helps them perform better. Persons with good personalities, who are popular and magnetic in social situations, can sense this communication from other people, and they automatically and spontaneously react and respond to it in a creative way. The communication from other people is used as negative feedback and enables the person to perform better socially. Unless a person can respond to this communication from other people, she is a cold fish type, the reserved personality who does not warm up to other people. Without this communication, you become a social dud, the hard-to-get-to-know type who interests no one. When you become too consciously concerned about what others think, when you become too careful to consciously try to please other people, when you become too sensitive to the real or fancied disapproval of other people, then you have excessive negative feedback, inhibition, and poor performance. Whenever you constantly and consciously monitor your every act, word, or manner, again you become inhibited and self-conscious. You become too careful to make a good impression, and in so doing, choke off, restrain, inhibit your creative self, and end up making a rather poor impression. The best way to make a good impression on other people is never consciously try to make a good impression on them. Never act or fail to act purely for consciously contrived effect. Never wonder consciously what the others are thinking of you, how they are judging you. How a salesman cured self-consciousness. James Mangan, the famous salesman, author, and lecturer, said that when he first left home he was painfully self-conscious, especially when eating in the dining room of a ritzy or high-class hotel. As he walked through the dining room, he felt that every eye was on him, judging him, critical of him. He was painfully conscious of his every movement, motion, and act, the way he walked, the way he sat down, his table manners, and the way he ate his food. And all these actions seemed stiff and awkward. He wondered, why was he so ill at ease? He knew he had good table manners, and knew enough social etiquette to get by. Why had he never felt self-conscious and ill at ease when eating in the kitchen with Ma and Pa? He decided it was because when he was eating with Ma and Pa, he did not think or bother to wonder how he was acting. He was neither careful nor self-critical. He was not concerned about producing an effect. He had felt composed, relaxed, and had done all right. James Mangan cured his self-consciousness by remembering how he had felt and how he had acted when he was going to the kitchen to eat with Ma and Pa. Then, when he walked into a ritzy dining room, he would imagine or pretend that he was going to eat with Ma and Pa and act that way. Mangan also found that he could overcome his stage fright and self-consciousness when calling on big shots or in any other social situation by saying to himself, "I'm going to eat with Ma and Pa," conjuring up in his imagination how he had felt and how he had acted, and then acting that way. This attitude of being immune to strangers or strange situations, this total disregard for all the unknown or unexpected, has a name. It is called poise. Poise is the deliberate shunting aside of all fears arising from new and uncontrollable circumstances. The most liberating of all thoughts is disregard or disconcern for what other people think. Once you realize that most people are keeping up appearances and putting on a show, their approval becomes less important. Excessive concern over what other people think inhibits personality more than any other factor. Truth be told, we tend to believe other people think about us far more than they ever actually do. How many times have you obsessed over what somebody's remark or even their glance meant, devoting hours to it, While you stew, the other person forgot the matter within seconds and moved on to a myriad of other people, places, and things. If you are among the millions who suffer unhappiness and failure because of inhibition, you need to deliberately practice disinhibition. You need to practice being less careful, less concerned, less conscientious. You need to practice speaking before you think instead of thinking before you speak, acting without thinking instead of thinking or considering carefully before you act. Commonly, when I advise a patient to practice disinhibition, and the most inhibited object the most, I am likely to hear something like this. But surely you do not think that we need to exercise no care at all, no concern, no worry about results. It seems to me that the world needs a certain amount of inhibition, otherwise we would live like savages and civilized society would collapse. If we express ourselves without any restraint, freely expressing our feelings, we would go around punching people in the nose who disagreed with us. Yes, I say, you are correct. The world does need a certain amount of inhibition, but not you. The key words are a certain amount. You have such an excessive amount of inhibition, you are like a patient running a temperature of 108 degrees who says, "But surely body heat is necessary for health. Man is a warm-blooded animal and could not live without a certain amount of temperature. We all need temperature, yet you are telling me that I should concentrate completely and entirely on reducing my temperature and ignore completely the danger of not having any temperature." Someone has said that the inhibited, worry-warty, anxiously concerned personality stutters all over. Balance and harmony are what is needed. Our goal is an adequate, self-fulfilling, creative personality. The path to the goal is a course between too much inhibition and too little. When there is too much, we correct course by ignoring inhibition and practicing more disinhibition. How to tell whether you need disinhibition. Here are the feedback signals which can tell you whether you are off course because of too much or too little inhibition. If you continually get yourself into trouble because of overconfidence, if you habitually rush in where angels fear to tread, if you habitually find yourself in hot water because of impulsive, ill-considered actions, if projects backfire on you because you always act first and ask questions later, if you can never admit you're wrong, if you are a loud talker and a blabbermouth, then you probably have too little inhibition. You need to think more of the consequences before acting. You need to stop acting like a bull in a china shop and plan your activities more carefully. However, the great majority of people do not fall in this category. If you are shy around strangers, if you dread new and strange situations, if you feel inadequate, worry a lot, are anxious, overly concerned, if you are nervous and feel self-conscious, if you have any nervous symptoms such as facial tics, blinking your eyes unnecessarily, tremor, or difficulty in going to sleep, if you feel ill at ease in social situations, if you hold yourself back and continually take a back seat, then these are all symptoms showing that you have too much inhibition. You are too careful in everything. You plan too much. You need to practice St. Paul's advice to the Ephesians. Be careful in nothing. Try these mental training exercises. 1. Don't wonder in advance what you are going to say. Just open your mouth and say it. Improvise as you go along. Jesus advises us to give no thought as to what we would say if delivered up to counsels, but that the Spirit would advise us what to say at the time. 2. Don't plan. Take no thought for tomorrow. Don't think before you act. Act and correct your actions as you go along. This advice may seem radical, yet it is actually the way all servo mechanisms must work. A torpedo does not think out all its errors in advance and attempt to correct them in advance. It must act first, start moving toward the goal, then correct any errors that may occur. 3. Stop criticizing yourself. The inhibited person indulges in self-critical analysis continually. After each action, however simple, she says to herself, "I wonder if I should have done that." After she has gotten up courage enough to say something, she immediately says to herself, "Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe the other person will take it the wrong way." Stop tearing yourself apart. Useful and beneficial feedback works subconsciously, spontaneously, and automatically. Conscious self-criticism, self-analysis, and introspection is good and useful if undertaken perhaps once a year. But the continual, moment-by-moment, day-by-day sort of second-guessing yourself or playing Monday morning quarterback to your past actions is defeating. Watch for this self-criticism. Pull yourself up short and stop it. 4. Make a habit of speaking louder than usual. Inhibited people are notoriously soft-spoken. Raise the volume of your voice. You don't have to shout at people and use an angry tone. Just consciously practice speaking louder than usual. Loud talk in itself is a powerful disinhibitor. Experiments have shown that you can exert up to 15% more strength and lift more weight if you shout, grunt, or groan loudly as you make the lift. The explanation of this is that loud shouting disinhibits and allows you to exert all your strength, including what has been blocked off and tied up by inhibition. 5. Let people know when you like them. The inhibited personality is as afraid of expressing good feelings as bad ones. If he expresses love, he is afraid it will be judged sentimentality. If he expresses friendship, he is afraid it will be considered fawning or apple polishing. If he compliments someone, he is afraid the other will think him superficial or suspect an ulterior motive. Totally ignore all these negative feedback signals. Compliment at least 3 people every day. If you like what people are doing or wearing or saying, let them know it. Be direct.